How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to another Wizard101 video. My name is the Frenzy Gamer, and today we're going to be talking about 3 new spells that have just been leaked by both Wizard101 Spoilers and the AtmoPlex. Link to their Twitters will be in the description, and also if you guys want to see the animations for these spells, I think they look absolutely lovely. The link for that from the AtmoPlex's channel will be in the description as well. Give them subs, give them follows, because they definitely deserve all the support that they can get as of today, because they have been doing such great work over the years. And honestly, I am just like, surprised on how very little of following they get. They definitely deserve a lot more followers than they do right now. However, guys, really be talking about 3 new spells that have just been leaked by both of these people, and essentially these spells are actually in the Grizzleheim's lore pack, thus why I am in Grizzleheim by itself. Not only because it's such a beautiful world, but also because of these amazing spells, and it just seems to be fitting for the occasion. The first spell I'm going to be talking about today is going to be my least favorite spell of all the 3, which is Hammer of Thor. This is a 5-pip storm spell that does 475 damage of storm damage, and it removes a negative ward. Now, this spell, occasionally I thought that it was actually a spell that removes a shield from the opponent and then it does its hit. However, it doesn't do that. It actually just removes a trap. I'm not sure if this was intended to be to where it removes a like a negative ward, but it just seems like a very weird spell. I've been told that it removes a trap rather than a shield, which is actually quite disappointing. And honestly, I do think this spell could definitely be improved, because at first I did think that it was going to be able to remove a shield, but I was told otherwise, and afterwards I was quite disappointed, because I feel like for this spell, if it was to remove a shield and then it does its damage, I think that would have been a lot more preferred for Storm Wizards, because this essentially just allows them to gain a lot more momentum when it comes towards the max PvP world, and maybe a little bit of a health boost that's given to Storm, and they should probably be amazing for PvP. Like, this spell could have been the most amazing thing for Storm that they could have been given right now, but unfortunately the effect of this isn't as great, because the only negative ward you really have to worry about at this point is probably Feint. But no one really uses feints in a 1v1. I think that in order to improve this spell, you definitely need to make it to where it removes a shield and then it does its damage. Because not only will this give Storm momentum, but this can probably give them a little bit, I wouldn't say more of an edge, but it will give them a little bit more of a fighting chance against Isis. Because from my experience seeing lots of Storm PvP, the main way Isis tends to beat Storm is, like, if they get tons of Shadow Pips, they just spam Weaver, and that's pretty much it. Because, obviously they have some sort of high resistance against Storm, obviously, and not only that, but the Weaver shield's like a -75, so that alone could essentially just stop Storm altogether, because then they can't do as much damage as they hope to. So this spell could have been a game changer for Storm, mainly for the fact that it could make Isis think twice or just any school think twice about just using one singular shield against them, because now they have to worry about the effect of removal of a shield instead of just removal of a ward. The next spell I'm going to be talking about for today is actually going to be my second favorite spell so far. It's Grendel's Amends. This is actually a new myth healing spell, which finally myth gets a new healing spell. That's amazing. I absolutely love this spell. It's very good. However, I do have a few small complaints about it. I feel like people have been overhyping this spell a little bit too much. Because don't get me wrong, it's great myth has a heal, but then you have to think about certain things that's even far from PvP actually. So let's talk about the PvE aspect. The PvE aspect of this, the positives for this is that finally myth actually has a pretty decent supportive spell in the form of a heal that could definitely make myth a little bit more of a school that people might want to have, because they finally have something really useful for PvE and dungeons. Because the thing about myth is that most of their spells are basically mainly for PvP, and like no one really uses Cleanse Word that much. I mean, let's just be honest here, no one really uses Cleanse Word, and the only spell that myth tends to use mainly for PvP is Shatter. But the problem with Shatter is that everyone else can get Shatter, so essentially myth at this point can't really use much spells that are very useful for PvE aspects and forms of dungeons. So having this spell is definitely great. in terms of, you know, people being a little bit more, you know, nicer, I guess, to the Myth School when it comes towards, you know, having them on their team for PvE and dungeons. That's good. But I'll be talking about some of the cons that also relates to PvE a little bit later. The pros for PvP is that this actually is going to improve Myth quite a bit. Having heals definitely is something that Myth definitely needed. And also, it could change the Myth's playing style to where now they have to rely a little bit more on, you know, critical and healing setups. My only problem with this spell definitely has to be the pip cost, though. That, and also because of the fact that it's only just a heal. There's really nothing else to it. And this relates to both PvE and PvP. So, let's just talk more in the PvP aspect. I think the spell is really good for Legendary. You know, this Legendary, Under, you know, you name it. But when you get in terms of, you know, once people start getting Shadow Pips, it becomes a problem because of how fast-paced, you know, max level PvP tends to be. Max level PvP essentially is people who can do tons of damage out of nowhere by having either one blade, a trap, a field, or even just by itself. You know, and they just use a Shadow hit. Shadow Enhance hit. And that alone basically negates a majority, if not all, of the healing effects that the Myth spell can do if it was critical. And the odd pip cost is also a little bit, you know, of a downside as well. Because even for lower level PvP, the odd pip cost definitely could be a problem. People are more than likely going to be using Satyr anyways, because Satyr, which I have here, because, you know, I used to actually carry these because, you know, no one really wanted a Myth hitter, obviously, so I had to do this. I had to improvise. Satyr actually does 860 healing for 4 pips, which is a good amount, you know, cost for, like, a spell. And it's great, because it does, you know, what it's supposed to do, does quite a bit of healing. And honestly, if this was able to critical, then you basically get almost, like, 2k, maybe a little bit more, like 3k. Like, you know, Life Wizards can definitely get to 3k. For sure, if they critical this spell. So that's amazing, you know, that's a really amazing thing. For Myth, on the other hand, this spell only does 675 healing for just 5 pips, so it's weaker than a Satyr in all levels, basically. So the great thing about Myth School, you know, and that's the thing why I don't really like the spell as much, is because of the fact that Myth has always been known to have really amazing utility within their spells. You see it with Minotaur, where, you know, it's the only school that has a double hit that you can train. And, you know, you can learn. And that's amazing. You know, that's an amazing thing to have. It gives Myths that kind of advantage. Like, the reason why Myth tends to have advantage against lots of schools is mainly because of how unique their, you know, their spells are. You know, it's always in the mindset of PvP. And, you know, it's the uniqueness and the useful utility of these spells that makes them very good for PvP. Obviously, there's better schools, but this is the thing that tends to give Myth the edge. Keeper of the Flame does damage and then gives a trap, kind of like Brimstone, which is great. Athena, which in my opinion is one of my most favorite, you know, Myth cards as of recent. It does quite a decent amount of damage, and it does a minus 35 shield to yourself, which is really good. It's a good offensive, kind of defensive card, but the defense part isn't really as overpowered. You know, you have spells like Earthquake, where it does damage and removes pretty much everything, except stun shields, of course. You know, Orthrus, another double hit. You got Medusa that does damage and the stun for 2 rounds. You got King Artorias, which, you know, does, like, 2 utilities. One which everyone tends to have, and a unique utility that it can remove a ward from an opponent after the hit's done. Which is great, because this actually can help us with, you know, removing some double set shields most of the time. Basilisk, an overtime damage that does a stun for 1 round. That's great. Celestial Calendar pretty much does like an insane amount of damage, and it steals a pip. You know, that's amazing. And then, you know, many more spells, like, you know, majority of Myth spells have always been like this, and this spell unfortunately just isn't like that whatsoever. The way I see, you know, you can improve the spell, if you want to just keep it 5 pips, is give like a Legion shield, kind of like, you know, Athena in a way, like a minus 35, maybe even a minus 30 shield to all allies. So not only does this, you know, make it seem a little bit more worth for Myths to actually cast the hook, because now they're aware that they can have some sort of protection with it, but also it allows them to be a lot more useful in the side of PvE when it comes in terms of questing, because now they have a really amazing supportive spell. And sorry guys, I have a really long tangent with the Myth spell, because I just have a very, high opinion on the myth spell. I think it's very good, but at the same time, I still think it could be improved and it could be better, because I don't think it's really as hype as people tend to make it be. Maybe I'm wrong, I would love to have discussion with you guys, so yeah, just leave it in the comments. But other than that, the last spell that we have is Redatoska's Spin. I have no idea how to pronounce the spell, but this is actually finally a life AoE hit, 4 pips, that does 305 to 345 life damage to all enemies. This is finally something that life has been needing for such a long time, and I am so happy that life now has an all of enemies hit, like a very cheap one now, not a shadow hit or anything, just an all of enemies normal hit for just 4 basic pips, and there you go. It's amazing, and this has to be probably my most favorite. There's really not much I have to say about it, because I mean, I just absolutely love it. I think it's great. It's fun. It's great. It's a good time that now life actually has something that can help them really well with the PvE aspect. Obviously, lives aren't really well known as hitters for PvP, because most of the time, it's preferred that they're, for the most part, Jades. But life hitters, pretty underrated, I'm not gonna lie. And this spell definitely is going to be helping them with the PvP aspect if you're just doing like quick matches, or just matches where like, it promotes a little bit more of offensive lives rather than Jade lives. So it's very good overall. However, guys, let me know what you guys think about these spells. Sorry for a very long video. I just had so much opinions about 2 certain spells, especially the myth one. I think it's great, but it definitely needs to be improved. The storm one totally needs to be improved, and the life one is great. I love the life one. The only thing I'll have to say is that hopefully, this pack gives like maybe some of the TCs as well, not just the actual spell, but some of the TCs, so that they can then be craftable. Hopefully that when they release this pack, you can also farm it from Lore Master as well. I want to see, alternatives of getting the spell, not just having to open like 30k packs and then, hope to get that right spell. I would love, alternatives for this, and I think that Kingsall is going to make alternatives for this. However, guys, let me know what you think. Make sure to leave a like. Subscribe if you haven't. Also, make sure to check out these people, the AtmoPlex and also Wizard101 Spoilers, for these amazing leaks. Give them some follows, give them some subs. It will be greatly appreciated. And as always, remember to stay frenzy. Peace. Getting stronger every day.